What is ruining relationships and killing marriages all over the world? Want to take a guess?
Children.
That. Love. It's horrible. Love has become literally an idol. We worship it, we bow to it, we suffer for it, we kill for it, we die for it, and it's not worth it. Love has become so exaggerated in its importance, and it's so overused, the word, that it literally is destroying relationships. That's not part of the comedy. That's the serious part. See, love is not important. Importance is not a good adjective. Love is not important. Something important you should love. But love doesn't make anything important. And this is really a crucial, important point in life in general. If you love someone who is not important in your life, they remain non-important. If someone is important in your life and you don't love them, they remain important. You have to tell every child, every 11-year-old, the brother you hate is more important than the dog you love, because they don't think so. They prefer their dog over their brother because they love their dog. That is a very clear indication of narcissism. My love makes you important. When I love you, you're the most important person in the world. When I stop loving you, you're garbage. How nasty is that? How out of touch with reality is that? So you can't say love is important. Love is appropriate to those who are important. So, why do we have a commandment to love our fellow Jew? Because love is important? Love makes the world go round? No, Jews make the world go round. Ask any anti-Semite. We have a mitzvah to love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Why? Because love is so important? No, because God is important. And if you don't love him, he's still important. So, let's get love a little removed from our relationships. It's not about love. In fact, love and marriage do not go together like a horse and carriage. They don't. What does it mean? Man and woman fall in love, they have to get married. What kind of punishment is that? What has marriage got to do with love, really? Especially if you're marrying for love. You love someone and you want to continue that love. So you get married? That's not a good idea. If you love someone, go ahead. What are you getting married for? It's not like marriage will bring love, you already have it. This couple came and said, we're very much in love, we want to get married, will you do the wedding? I said, you're in love? They said, yeah. I said, too late. Once you're in love, what are you getting married for? Why? So the guy says, because we want to make it a commitment. I said, what exactly does that mean? You're making a commitment to what? To stay married even if you don't love each other? You have no intentions of doing that. So what's the commitment? To continue loving? Well, just continue. You can't commit to loving. Does this make sense? So let's go back to the beginning. In modern times, we discovered something really fascinating. Anything you get in marriage, you can have without marriage. What a shocking revelation. You want to have love, you don't need to be married. You want to have sex, you don't need to be married. You want to have children, you don't need to be married. Why in the world is anyone getting married? Why? Because your mother insists? You want to make her happy? What is this marriage all about? We haven't asked that question in probably 1,000 years because we took it for granted. You know, you grow up, you get married, you have children. Why? What do you mean, why? That's what you do. That's what we used to do. Now, all of a sudden, it's not happening because we don't know why. So we need to know. The purpose of marriage is a reunion. A reunion, a rejoining of two parts of a soul that got divided at birth. A reunion, that's a pretty powerful thing. So you meet your intended, and you say, wow, I haven't seen you in about 25, 26 years. Nice to see you again. It's a reunion. And it's a reunion between male and female because that's what got divided. Adam was male and female, and then God performed an operation and divided them. Which means that our original nature is to be male and female. So if you're only male or you're only female, you're not finished. Get married, then you're finished. So marriage means reuniting parts that got separated. What is the purpose of this reuniting? To become one. Here's a really beautiful concept. Adam and Eve were like Siamese twins. Like two sides of a coin. One side was male, the other side was female. Which means that they shared a spine, not a rib. God separated them, and then immediately, upon separating, God said to them, therefore you should leave your mother and father, cleave to your wife, and become one flesh. So the purpose of marriage is, well, one, to get away from your mother and father. But really, it's to become one. They must have asked or wondered, we were one. We were inseparable. So you separate us and then tell us to become one? What is the point of that? So here's the beauty of it. They were one back to back, which means impersonal. Not intimate. Inseparable, but not because of intimacy. When they got separated and can now rejoin and become one again, this time it's face to face. And for that difference, the surgery was worth it. See, the same thing is true with our soul. Our soul is a little piece of God that gets separated and sent into the world, into the earth, into a body. What is the purpose? To reunite with God. But we were united with God. Yeah, but not by choice, not face to face. Intimacy is really what marriage is all about. So what is the purpose of marriage? To reunite, become one through intimacy. Not by stitching us together. In the 60s, the entire society, both men and women, came to the conclusion that intimacy is not so necessary, so important, it's too heavy, it's too committed, it's too profound. Lighten up. Free love. Free love means sex without intimacy. Just recreational. We have been suffering from that for a long time now. And it's time to fix it. There is no love without vulnerability. Is that not true? If I claim to love you very, very much, and you're not interested, and my reaction is, your loss. Doesn't cost me anything. I never loved you. There is no love without vulnerability. What makes us vulnerable? The fact that we're only male or only female, and it's not enough. So there's another powerful statement right in the beginning of the description of creation. God says to Adam, I'm going to separate you and create a spouse for you because it's not good to be alone. If it's not good to be alone, why is it that all people are asking for is just leave me alone? Is it not good to be alone? It's a pleasure to be alone. No? I mean, if you're self-sufficient. And if you can't fry an egg, okay, you got some problems. But if you can be self-sufficient, wouldn't that be perfect? Not good to be alone? It's not good to be a schlemazel, you know what I mean? It's not good to have lack of coordination. But if you can handle your life by yourself, wouldn't that be perfect? And God says, no, it's not good to be alone. And we now discover that a person who feels that they're alone in the world becomes vulnerable to every passing disease because your immune system crashes. So in England, they opened up a new department in the Ministry of Health, dealing specifically with the problem of loneliness. Because they want to save money. It is a health hazard to feel alone. And if you remember that song, Piano Man, there's a very profound sentence there. Got to find out who wrote that because they're sharing a drink they call loneliness, but it's better than drinking alone. That is profound. There's loneliness and there is aloneness. Loneliness you can share. Get a bunch of lonely people together, like tonight, and you share your loneliness, and you're not lonely till you get home. And then you realize, I'm not lonely, I'm alone. And you can't share that. So, is it good to be alone or is it not good to be alone? So we have two sides to us. The human nature is, leave me alone. I don't need to answer for you. I don't need to answer to you. I don't need to ask your permission. Leave me alone and I will be fine. That is human nature. When God said to Adam, I'm going to create a spouse or helpmate for you because it's not good to be alone, God injected that into the human being. If God hadn't said it's not good to be alone, we would not feel any loss or any absence. We would be completely content to be alone. But God said, no, it is not going to be good to be alone. He created that. Just like God said, let there be light, and there was light. God said it's not good to be alone, and now it's not good to be alone. But that is a divine attribute. It's not a human condition. So the human part of me says, leave me alone. The godly part in me says, what's the point? If I'm just me, what's the point? And by the way, this is how you should propose. Got to get some practical information here too, you know. A man says to a woman, please marry me. I can't live without you. Should she marry him? No. No, she should recommend therapy. If you can't live without me, you're a sick person. Go get help. I'm not going to nurse you. But on the other hand, if a man says to a woman, please marry me, I can live without you. Honest guy. Single guy. You can live without me, go right ahead. So what's a man to say? There was this comedian, and she disappeared. I don't know what happened to her, but she was very funny. And she says, I don't trust men. No, I learned not to trust men from my boyfriend. Because he said that if I ever left him, he would kill himself. So I left him. They never do what they promise. So if a man says, I can't live without you, either he's being honest and he's a really disturbed guy, or he's just lying. Either way, don't marry him. But if he says, marry me, I can live without you, what kind of proposal is that? So what should a man say? Same thing God said to us. I can exist without you, I have, for an eternity. I can live without you. But what would be the point? I can have my own life. But what's the point to that? Together, life has meaning. By myself, what's the point? That's why God said, it is not good to be alone. It's practical. It's comfortable. It's free. But what's good about it? Let's say you are absolutely perfect. You're absolutely self-sufficient. You can do anything by yourself. What's good about it? Where's goodness? There's no goodness if it's just you. Goodness begins when there's someone else. Marriage is the antidote to aloneness. It's the only one, by the way. No matter how close you are with your parents, you are not one with your parents. They gave birth to you. You can't give birth to them. It's not a balanced relationship. And that's why you have to honor them, because what they did for you, you could never do for them. You're not one. You're indebted. You owe them. That's not one. With your children, no matter how close you are with your children, you're not one with them. You pay their bills, but you're not one with them. The only relationship in which two people become one is marriage. So marriage is the antidote to aloneness. God finds it unacceptable to be alone, as perfect as he is. And so after he creates Adam, he now has somebody to talk to. He says, let me tell you why I created you. Because it's not good to be alone, not even for me. Where is the goodness in aloneness? So that's why we get married. We get married because we have this deep-seated conviction that it can't just be me. We don't even know why. It's just a godly instinct that says, it can't just be me. Even if you were God, you would have that same feeling. Can't be just me. What's the point? Perfection is a dead end. You don't want to be perfect, because then you become really boring. Like, what do you say to someone who's perfect? What's new? Nothing. Plans for the weekend? No. Looking forward to tomorrow? No. Perfect is the same as dead, isn't it? So the solution is to be imperfect? No. The solution is to be perfect with someone else. What is someone else? This man says to me, I love everything about my wife. Which, of course, I did not believe for a second. But let's play along, right? He says, I love everything about my wife. I said, well, great. Do you love her? He says, I told you, I love everything about her. I said, yeah, but do you love her? Not about her. Do you love her? He says, what does that mean? Do you see where the problem is? Do you love her? What does that even mean? If you take away all the things, what's left? So I love all the things about my wife. Take those things away, what are you left with? Her. Do you love her when all things are taken away? He can't even relate to that. Is it surprising that she feels alone in the world, even while married to him? So when he said, I love everything about my wife, I said, that's really interesting, because your wife wants a divorce. So what's going on here? If you love things about the other person, you're not becoming one. You're remaining separate. What is causing people to remain separate? Two things: love and sex. Most people think that that is actually a definition of marriage. What's marriage? You have sex with someone you love. No. Love and sex keep you apart. Think about this for a second, because it's real. If a man were to say to a woman, marry me, because I love your money. I want your money. You have money. I love money. Perfect match. Match made in heaven. I want to marry you for your money. Should she marry him? It is shocking. I said this to a group of women. I said, if a man were to say to you, I want to marry you for your money, would you marry him? They said, no. I said, why not? They said, because what's going to happen when they run out of money? That's your problem. Try again. Why wouldn't you marry someone who says, I want to marry you for your money? It's because what he's really saying, if you just read between the lines a little bit, he's saying, look, I can't just have your money, can I? Because that's really all I want. In a perfect world, you would just give me the money. But this is not a perfect world, so in order to get the money, I'm going to have to marry you. So when he says, I want to marry you for the money, not true. He just wants the money. And if the only way to get there is by marrying you, he'll do that too. But he doesn't love marrying you. He's marrying the money. True, right? Indisputable. Why is marrying for love any better? I want to marry you because I want your love. Not a good idea. What happens when you run out of love? No, it's worse than that. You're not marrying the person, you're marrying the love. And the proof is, would you stay married if you no longer loved him? Of course not. Why? Why would anybody stay married without love? So what are you married to? The love. And we learn this from God also. Most religious people, and religion is a really bad thing, most religious people say, I keep commandments, I worship God, I believe in God because I want to get to heaven. How nasty is that? It's literally like saying to God, can I just go to heaven? No? I got to do, fine, I'll do it. I just want to get to heaven. It's so insulting. Love is a thing. Because you can have it, not have it, you can have more, you can have less. It's a thing. Anything that brings you in connect another person is not intimate, because that thing stays in the way. It comes between you. So if you love pina colada and walks in the rain, don't get married. Just drink pina colada and walk in the rain. So no, but we both love pina colada and we both love walking in the rain. Don't get married. It will separate you, not bring you together. Anything that you introduce into your relationship will destroy the intimacy. Sex has become a thing. You have it, you don't have it, more or less, different. It's a thing. Like, how was it? How was it? How was it? It was just us in the room. Who let an it into the bedroom? And who is the it? There is no it. There is no thing in intimacy. Intimacy means the ability to connect to another person with no thing between you. So if you ask your grandmother, your great-grandmother, What happens in the bedroom? What goes on in the bedroom? She would say, nothing. You say, come on, tell me. Nothing. And you think she's just being difficult? She's giving you the best answer. In a bedroom, there is nothing. No thing, it's just them. Them with nothing separating them. But when sex becomes a thing, it kills the intimacy. So intimacy is literally the opposite of pornography. Pornography makes a thing out of everything. Intimacy removes all things, and there's just us. Now, just us is always wonderful. Things, sometimes they're better, sometimes they're not so good, and you start to worry, you start to be self-conscious, and it's like a guy came over to me once, totally unexpected. He says, can I ask you a personal question? I said, sure. He says, I'm just wondering, do you sleep with your beard on top of the blanket or your beard under the blanket? Cute. I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks. I tried it on top of the blanket, under the blanket. You become self-conscious about a thing, and you can't sleep anymore. You want to ruin a perfectly good marriage? Very simple. Take the husband aside and say, the sex is good? That's it, you've killed him. I think it's good. What? What am I, what am I missing? All of a sudden it's like, oh, those magazines, 14 ways to improve, 14 secrets to better sex. 14 secrets I don't know? I'm such a failure. See, it becomes a thing, and now all of a sudden there's no intimacy. Intimacy can happen only in the dark. Being intimate in the light, that's pornography. Photography. The only reason you have the lights on is because the camera needs light. You remember all the old, don't remember. You've seen the reruns of like I Love Lucy, The Honeymooners, right? When they were going to be intimate, what happened? They turned off the light. And you knew they're going to be intimate. And that was universal, not religious, just normal. Because intimate means no thing, just us. If the light is on, you're going to see. What are you going to see? Something. Because that's all the eye can see, is things. Now that thing may be your partner's nose, but that ruins everything. Anything interferes with intimacy, because intimacy is a non-thing. Just us, and we are not things. That is so crucial to life. You can live without sex. Yeah, you really can. And you're missing nothing. It's like living without chocolate. No, chocolate is worse. You can live without chocolate. You can live without sex. You can't live without intimacy. Intimacy is a genuine human necessity. Sex is not. Now, sex used to be intimate. It was awesome. It was scary. Somebody wrote a book, Safe Sex? it's not sex. If it's safe, it's not sex. Sex was awesomely scary. It was so profound, it was so deep, it was so dangerous that it really increased the excitement. Jackie Mason had a routine. Very funny. He was a very funny man. He says he goes to California and he sees all these people sitting around all day long in the cafeterias and like they're not employed, they don't have jobs. He asks them, shouldn't you be going to work? They say they're producers. And they're producing their next movie. And they're sitting around discussing where to put the sex scene. So he asks them, why does every movie have to have a sex scene? And they say, because the movie is a simulation of real life. And in life, people have sex. He says, yeah, people also have soup. Why do I never see a soup scene? I mean, tastefully done, of course. Devastating question. But let's follow that a little bit. Why? Why is there a sex scene in every movie and not a soup scene? Soup is good. Soup is good food. What is the difference? It's a very funny story. What is the difference between sex and soup? We had this teenager for a Shabbaton. He came to the Chabad house in Minnesota. And he was such an obnoxious kid. He thought he was the most handsome, the most, the God's gift to women. So we were talking. I said to him, can I ask you a question? What is the difference between soup and sex? He says, I don't know. I said, you don't know? Oh, I'm so disappointed. I thought for sure you would know the difference between soup and sex. He says, no, I don't know. I said, well, if you don't know, stay out of my kitchen. You're dangerous. What is the difference between soup and sex? The difference is soup is a one-dimensional pleasure. If you like it, you like it. You don't like it, you don't like it. Sex has always been a two-dimensional pleasure. There's the pleasure of having sex, and there's the pleasure of the fact that you really shouldn't be doing this. It's too intense, it's too holy, you're making a baby. So it's a two-dimensional, I don't know if you remember this, but I can really do this? This is okay? But when you reduce the sex to just one dimension, you might as well have soup. We have turned sex into soup. And I think that by and large, people are totally turned off to sex. Is that not true? It's too burdensome and too messy, and it's just not. And then you wonder, what's wrong with me? Nothing wrong with you. Sex without intimacy is boring. And it's a little degrading too. Here's the difference. After sex, you feel diminished. You don't mind, but come on, you feel diminished. After intimacy, you feel more innocent than before. Because when you can get past all things, you've gotten back to your most innocent self. When you're dating, which, by the way, I have no idea what dating means. Why are you dating a living human being? You date a corpse. Why is it called dating? Anybody know? It used to be called courting. Nobody knew what that meant. It's also known as going. Are you going with anybody? Going out? No. Going in? Where are you going? Why do we use these silly words? The worst of them is, are you seeing anybody? No? Totally blind? This guy says, I'm seeing a really special woman. I say, that's great. Can I see her too? No. No, I can't see her. Why do we use these ridiculous words? Because we're afraid to admit the truth. You're becoming emotionally entangled. But that's scary, so you deny it. You say, no. I'm just seeing her. I used to see her, then I don't see her anymore. Right? Doesn't sound so devastating and heartbreaking. What we're really doing, if you're sincere about life, you're not dating, you're not going, you're not seeing, you're meeting to determine whether this person could be your lifetime partner. Sometimes you know at first glance, not marrying him. Sometimes the opposite. You take one look and you say, yeah, this is him. What are you looking for? A marriage. You're not looking for a date. This dating thing has become such a monstrosity, and it does so much damage and very little good. It was once believed that if you date and get to know the opposite gender, you will make a better decision when it comes to marriage. You'll know who to marry. Didn't happen. Since we've been dating, marriages has gone down. Divorces have gone up to the point where people don't even want to get married anymore. So, you meet because you want to be married. So the first thing is this. Weed out those who have no intentions of getting married. You don't want to waste your time with them. So here's how you do it. You want to be married? Do you want to be married by Pesach? No? Why not? Can't find a caterer? By Pesach. Okay, June. Right, everybody gets married in June. Do you want to be married by June? If you do, put it on your calendar. Mark your calendar, June 15th. Right in the middle of the month. June 15th, wedding. Write it on your calendar. When you meet someone next, on the first meeting, take out your calendar. I'm scheduled for June 15. If he says, of which year? Say, good night, you're off. You're off the list. You're not serious about marriage. Can you imagine if you show the guy your calendar and it says June 15th, he says, I was planning for 17th. You make a compromise, and you're married on the 16th of June. How perfect is that? So when I suggest that to women, put it on your calendar and tell the guy you meet that you're planning to be married on the 15th. And the women say, you can't do that. They'll run away. Exactly. That's the whole purpose. Those who don't really want to get married will run away. Save you a lot of time and heartache. What do you go to these meetings for? You want to be married because it's not good to be alone. God said you should be married. Your mother is waiting. Call up a guy on the phone and say, let's get married.
What about me? It's not about God or my mom.
So do it over the phone. Hi, you're not married? Neither am I. Let's get married. Why do you need to meet? What are you looking for? This is really a crucial question. Guy goes out with a girl because he wants to see if she is more beautiful than anyone else he's ever met. This is not about marriage. This is not a husband. That is not the purpose of meeting, which is, by the way, a requirement according to Jewish law. You're not allowed to get married if you haven't seen each other. So you meet to see whether he is the most adorable, the most talented, the most intelligent. No. First of all, you don't want to marry the most intelligent, the most talented. They're no fun. What are you looking for? And how do you know, after meeting, how do you know this is the right person for you? How do you make a decision? You don't want the most, because you'll never find her. No matter how beautiful the woman you're meeting with is, there are more women. You haven't checked them all out yet. You can keep doing this all your life. That's not the purpose. The purpose is this. You want to marry someone who believes in marriage like you do. That is number one. If he doesn't believe in marriage, don't marry him. If he says, I never really planned to get married, but you I would marry, don't do it. You're not that great. And you shouldn't carry the burden. Because the only reason he's marrying you is because you're spectacular. Then you're going to have to be spectacular for the rest of your life. Not fair. You're going out to make sure that this person who is highly marriageable doesn't have anything about him that disturbs you. It's a process of elimination. Is there anything about him that disturbs me? And if there is something that disturbs you, call it off. It is absolutely ridiculous for a guy dating a girl and they're not getting along, so they go for therapy. What in the world are you doing? A guy tells me, I'm in a relationship and we're working on it. I said, let me break that down. You're working on it because you don't like her. And you're trying to fix that. You're crazy. I never heard two guys who were best friends and suddenly they don't like each other. They're going for therapy? I used to like you. I don't like you anymore. What's the therapy? So here's what you're doing. You want to make sure that her looks are comfortable to you. She's easy to look at. She doesn't have to be the most beautiful, which you will never find. If there is something, anything about her that makes you uncomfortable, just call it off. Even if it's a freckle. You say, oh, that's so petty. Well, you're petty. You think marriage is going to solve that? Anything that bothers you, you don't need an excuse. If it bothers you, call it off. Because if it bothers you when you're not married to her, it will bother you much more once you do marry her. And if there's anything about him that bothers you, call it off. Don't ask for trouble. Now, this doesn't mean that you're going to marry someone who's perfect. You're going to marry someone who you are comfortable with. Famous story, a woman said, I will not go out with a guy who's balding. The shadchan, very important, the shadchan set her up with a guy who was already bald. But she told him not to take his hat off in the meetings. Then she calls him, says, how was it? He says, great. You enjoyed? Yeah. You want to go out again? Yeah. Oh, you told me not to take my hat off. I forgot. I took my hat off. She says, you blew it. She calls the girl. How was it? Good. She says, good? Yeah. Want to meet him again? Yeah. Even though he's bald? She says, he's bald? She didn't even notice. So is he perfect? No, he's bald. But bald doesn't bother her in him. That's all you're really looking for. So anything that does bother you, just call it off. If it doesn't bother you, may bother everybody else, but it doesn't bother you, fine. Fine. It's not a reason to marry. It means you could marry. So the first thing you find out is, could I marry this person? Once you decide, yes, I could marry this person, now you have to give yourself a reason. You could, but why would you? Here's the secret. There's this thing called good chemistry. Good chemistry means a man is sitting with a woman, and usually there would be a little tension, there would be a little nervousness, awkwardness, feeling that you need to make an impression, thinking, what does she think? How do you like me now? How do you like me now? There is that tension. If you meet some guy and you're really excited about him because he is wow, that's not good chemistry. If he is excited with her, it's not good chemistry, that's just sexual attraction. Good chemistry means a man is sitting with a woman and he suddenly finds that he's never been so comfortable being a man. He feels like a man and it's really comfortable. She is thinking, I've never felt so feminine. He's doing it to her and she's doing it to him. Her femininity is bringing out his masculinity. And his masculinity is bringing out her femininity. That is good chemistry. Marry him on the spot. Don't let him out of your sight. That's the clincher. Not what do you think of the other. What does the other make you feel? And here's the breakdown. The guy is sitting with this woman, and he suddenly feels very comfortable with the thought, I could take care of her for the rest of my life and love it. He's never felt that way about anybody. She's feeling, I trust this guy. I feel completely safe with him. I would follow him to the ends of the world. Support him in whatever he wants to do. That's a marriage of a male and a female, being male and female. That kind of a marriage creates a real home, which is really what you want to do. In a real home, your kids love being there. They never want to leave. We'll talk about that next time. But that's the key. Marriage means becoming one. To become one, you have to remove all things. Love is a thing. Sex is a thing. If you are married and one, Then the love is wonderful, the sex is wonderful because of who you're with. Because of the who, not because of the what. Because the love in that case is not a thing, sex is not a thing, it's just them merging, removing all things. Then you're not alone, ever. Even if, God forbid, one of them dies, they're not alone. This woman said to me, my husband died, I'm so alone. I miss him so much. I said, wait. If you miss him, you're not alone. Like if your husband was overseas and you missed him, are you alone? No, you're just separated. But you're not alone. This is what we're trying to accomplish. This is sanity. This makes sense. Dating for the sake of dating is a cultural disaster. It's time to put an end to it. Experimental marriages, which is what dating has become. Let's be a little married and see how it is. Let's be partially married. Let's be halfway married. You're not going to know what it's like to be married unless you're married. So don't experiment with marriage. Some things are sacred. Dating is not a meaningful relationship. It's not a meaningful relationship, more likely a painful relationship. So we shouldn't date for the sake of dating. Statistically, the person you marry is not the person you would want to date. Because the guy who makes a good date may not make a good husband. In fact, the better he is at dating, the more suspicious you should be. The girl who makes a good date is not going to make a good wife. It's too shocking, the change. So people who live together for many years and then get married are more likely to get divorced than the average couple. So dating is a horrible idea. Why nobody wants to admit it, I don't know. So down with love, down with dating, down with all these meaningful relationships, and let's get real. Let's get real. One final thought. This woman says, I've been praying to get married. Years I've been praying to get married. Where are all the guys? I said, that's disgusting. None of your business where all the guys are. She says, no, I mean a guy. I said, you haven't met a guy? She said, somebody special. Never met anybody special? Where do you hang out? She says, I mean, the one for me. I said, look at how far we've come in a minute and a half. We started off with all the men, and all of a sudden we're down to the one for me. You know what they call the one for me? Husband. Stop looking for a man. Men are no good for women. Really? I read that book. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. In fact, I didn't even bother reading the book. The title told me everything I need to know. Men and women will never get along. Isn't that true? So God invented marriage where the man becomes a husband. The woman becomes a wife. So it's not just a man and a woman who don't get along. It's a husband and wife who can't be without each other. You're not a better husband without a wife, but you're a happier man without a woman. Unless you're brainwashed. So here's the point. You get married and you pray for it and you ask God, please what? So this woman who said, I've been praying for 9 years. Why isn't he answering me? I said, tell me exactly what your prayer is. She says, I'm asking God to help me meet somebody. You met somebody. Your prayers have been answered. Why can't you be honest with God? Why can't you tell him what you want? You don't want to meet somebody. You've met many bodies. She said, oh, so I should ask to get married? I said, why are you being so considerate of God? You don't want to overtax him? Ask for what you really want. And this is my blessing to you. This time next year, you should be living in your house with your husband, who you met, who you married, who you bought a house together with. Why don't you ask God for what you really want? Like people who ask God for a job. Help me find a job. You don't want a job, tell God what you really want. I want to be filthy rich. Who are you kidding? Without a job. Now that's a blessing. So tell God what you really want. This time next year, you want to be living in your house with your husband, 9 months pregnant. Not a bad idea, is it? You should always all have good news and put it on your calendar, because if you're serious about something, you put it on the calendar. So you only get married? Yeah. When? When? If I meet the right, you don't want to get married. If, when, come on. If you want to get married, get married. To whom? What's the difference? Thanks for listening. Do we have some time for some questions, complaints? Yeah.
So it's a little off topic, but you touched on it. So if you're saying that when a couple gets married and one person passes away, they're still considered a couple. So how is it that people who live, let's say they even have their children, sometimes they're grandparents, do you suggest that they still should pursue getting remarried again if they're a widow? Or are they still connected to that original?
If God forbid one of them passes away, they're not married anymore, but they're still soulmates. See, you were soulmates before you got married. It was a reunion. So if you're a soulmate before you get married, you're also soulmates after passing away. But you're not legally married, so you're allowed to marry someone else. But you're not alone. If you miss somebody, you're not alone. That's it. Yeah.
We know that Leah and Esau were supposed to get married. They were each other's parents, but Esau kept messing up. So then, of course, who was redirected to Yaakov? So how do we know? He'd be doing things that might affect that in this world as well, correct?
Soulmate means you're part of the same soul. How many parts can a soul divide into? 7. 7 male, 7 female. If you marry, you're going to marry one of those 7. That's your pool. So if you say, well, I can marry anybody. No, you can't. There are 7 possibilities. Of those 7, one of them is destined to be your spouse. Thinking that Leah was going to marry Esau is because they were all part of the same soul. But she was meant to marry Yaakov and not Esau. So the possibility was there because they were all soulmates. In fact, when you remarry a second time, you're marrying another part of the same soul, which is why they often look alike, sound alike, same soul. Yeah.
So if a marriage is a reunion and the people get divorced, was the first reunion like not real, or how does Judaism split that?
Well, what wasn't real?
If they people get married,
Yeah.
it's a reunion, and then they get divorced,
Yeah.
then was it not a real reunion?
I say this is very important. If you get divorced, you are getting divorced from your soulmate. That's why it's a tragedy. If it was just a mistake, pack your things and leave. You don't need a get, you don't need a ceremony, but because it is your soulmate and you're separating from your soulmate, it's a tragedy. Now people say, but if it's your soulmate, how come you don't get along? I said, do you get along with your own soul? You sometimes hate yourself? Yeah. Oh, then why can't you hate the other soul? So knowing that it's your soulmate doesn't mean it's going to be smooth sailing. It means every effort you put in is worth it because this is your soulmate. Doesn't mean you don't know it before. So anyone who is married, the marriage itself proves that this is your soulmate because God will not allow anyone to marry wrong. It's too important to him. I was speaking somewhere many years ago. We have, thank God, 14 children, but at that time we had a mere 11. So I was introduced as being the father of 11 children. I spoke for over an hour, and as soon as I finished speaking, this woman raises her hand and says, 11? She didn't hear a word after that. You have 11 children? I said, yeah. She says, do you know that some people don't have any? And for a moment, I felt really guilty. That's not nice. You take 11 and leave people with nothing? Weren't you taught to share? But only for a minute. After a minute, I realized you can't have somebody else's children. Is that true? You can't have somebody else's children? Well, what if I marry the wrong woman? Uh-oh. If I marry the wrong woman, we're having the wrong children. Life is a disaster. Just like you can't have someone else's children, you cannot be married to someone else's husband or wife. Because the two are connected, and God is really particular about babies. Now, what if two men are married to each other? Two women are married to each other? When they get divorced, is it a tragedy? It is the end of a union. It's not the breakup of a reunion. A Jew and a non-Jew get married. It's a union. They can live happily ever after. But it's not a reunion, which is very different in its intensity or its, well, I don't know, its cosmic significance. So any couple, two Jews, two non-Jews getting married, it's never a mistake. It can be a disaster, but it's not a mistake. And therefore the children are never a mistake. That's reassuring. Yeah.
So if marriage is in and dating is out, what's the mechanism of marriage for those of us who are used to dating?
It's the same process, but it's called meeting rather than dating. Because a meeting means you meet and that's over. Dating can go on forever. Becomes a lifestyle in its own. And it's terrible. It's really terrible.
Are there
something to keep in mind with dating?
Yeah. After 3 months, if he can't say yes or no, then you say no. If she can't say yes after 3 months, it's okay, 4. But to date someone for a year and a half, that is suicide. 3 years? Out of your mind? No, don't do that. This chemistry that we were talking about, it doesn't take months and years of living together. It doesn't. It's there or it's not there. You can live together and never find it and think you're doing something meaningful. It's not meaningful. You're trying to mold each other or mold yourself around the other. What are you doing? That's craziness. So, what kind of guy do you want to marry? Well, actually, it's too late. You can't pick the kind of guy. Your husband is already your husband. You say, well, I want him to be tall, dark, and handsome. I'm sorry, I met him. He's short, fat, and bald. Sorry. He's your husband. So stop thinking of what you want him to be and just think about what you're going to do to him if he marries you, because that you can control. Come on, that makes a lot of sense. Your husband already exists. He's got an apartment. He's got a phone number. Just can't find him. But he already exists. Question is, when you get married and you find him and get married, what will you do? Will you join him in his world, in his life? Will you compete with him in his life? Will you tell him that his life isn't worth living and that he should switch to your life? Happens too often. The idea is a man invites a woman to join him in his life. Not just for him, for his life. And if you like his life, you're marrying into something huge, not just a guy. But if a guy says, actually, I don't know what my life is going to be, but marry me. What are you, crazy? You don't know where you're going, but you want me to go with you? No way. Find out where you're going, and if I like it, I'll go with you. That's marriage. If you have a good life, your wife will want to support you, and your children will run to catch up. If you don't have a life, why is anybody else in your life? Judaism is a life. So if you say, join me and let's make a family and raise children in Judaism, that's a life. What are you going to do to make money? Whatever. But you got a life. You know, your children are going to go to yeshiva, you're going to go to shul on Shabbos, you're going to have a Shabbos meal. You have a life. You have a picture, a structure. You know how you're going to live. And then the kids want it. But if all you do is go off to a job in an office that the kids never get to see, what have they got to live for? They don't want to grow up. In a traditional family, kids can't wait to grow up. They want to be mommies and tatis immediately because there's something there. In secular families, kids don't want to grow up. They're 35 and they act like 9. So, mazel tov to all of you. You're going to get married this year. You're going to be married by June. And if he says no, don't waste time. Move on, move on. We should all find our husbands, our wives, and be settled into our homes. Now you're living. Now you're talking. And then make a great family and have a bunch of kids, 14,